I'm sorry, Lieutenant. You can be sure the Dean will be with you in a few moments.
That's all right, ma'am. We're used to it.
It's moving. It's circling us. Ah, fuck.
Good, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dean's List. Tonight's feature presentation, Horror Noire, a history of black horror, 2019. It's a Shudder original. I've been trying to get to this one for a minute now. I really want to see this. This is my first documentary reaction. Let's get it, y'all.
We've always loved horror. It's just that horror, unfortunately, hasn't always loved us.
That's a fact.
Terror and voodoo and all the weird black magic that the white man seldom sees.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Is there any more scary imagery than this?
Blackula. Oh, Friday the 13th Part 5. Yes. Horror Noire. It took me a minute to get the pronunciation of that. Let's get it.
Girl, I'm serious though. I'm like a sore thumb out here.
Lakeith,
Walking down the
sidewalk
back in a suburban neighborhood on a cell phone by himself.
Yeah,
Shit.
all of that.
I've been
Right.
there.
Yeah.
It was the perfect black horror story.
Yeah, really.
Black man walking in a suburban neighborhood in the middle of the night. Definitely a horror movie.
When I found out they were going to let me actually direct Get Out, I knew something big was going to happen. I thought there was a chance something very bad could happen, that I would get run out of town, that, I thought there's a possibility that people, don't want to see entertainment about something that, has been traditionally dealt with a certain reverence. But I also thought, this is a movie I wanted to see.
That's
To
right.
have a black protagonist, first of all, just in a horror trailer, had my attention. Huh? Wait, he might survive this. He might not be the natural
Exactly.
hero, or the sacrificial
A
hero,
black
or the
protagonist
guy
in a
on the
horror
street.
movie,
This is a
that
story
is
through a
completely
black lens,
different.
black artist.
Jordan Peele, get out.
Well deserved.
Black
Yes.
history is black horror.
Exactly. Look at that. Look at that. You're not going to tell me that that's not a fucking horror movie.
There's a character, Gus. Gus is a white actor in blackface who is depicted as being in pursuit of a young white girl. Gus is essentially lynched by the Klan.
When we were getting to know what African Americans were like through that film.
My guy,
As they live in the community.
Keith David.
With the endorsement of the president, it feels like policy. There were even advertisements and promotions that said this was essentially based on a true story, and it was as close to fact as one could get.
The Ku Klux Klan is being heralded as the solution to the Black Menace.
Yeah.
This is a movie that
It reigned as the picture of black life for so many years. Hollywood could use its messaging to create fear around black people, especially fear around black men.
Yes.
it's
Dr. Glenn.
filmmakers in this period really want black actors to be what they think blackness is. Films that are coming out in the 20s and 30s, leading up to Oscar Micheaux and Spencer Williams sort of saying, enough.
Like a lot of people do today in the independent world, he had his own film crew. His actors,
he had his own film crew, his own shit at the time. That it was impossible for us to have that.
Because there was a film called Ngagi.
Ngagi was an earlier low-budget effort by a white director,
which basically reported that Black Africans were meeting with gorilla-like creatures.
That
see the way they depicted us back then?
This mating has produced half ape, half human babies. The whole thing.
They said blacks were mating with apes.
It's something horror film. The makeup isn't great, and they didn't have much of a budget.
But Spencer got it made. And I look at that to this day as a testament.
It stars.
I gotta look that movie up.
As a scientist. She has a scientific lab in her basement.
A black scientist.
A
woman.
That
black scientist.
That she has been taming and sort of helping this ape man to thrive. You really get to see the black middle class on
a black female as a scientist? Come on. In that era, that was unheard of.
In 1940, when did you ever see black people just being themselves?
Exactly.
It was a way to show that not all black people were the way they had been depicted in films up to that time. So we have a doctor and a lawyer, everyone is well-spoken, and in that way,
a well-spoken black lawyer, black doctor,
to me, is
black scientist. Yes.
Oh, Andy, I love you.
And you're gonna like this one, because I bought this gun in a joke store.
That is that people will always know Williams as from Amos and Andy.
But he did so much more.
Contributes to the history of film is absolutely unmatched.
Yes.
He sets up what we really probably think of
his other
as
films,
modern
besides Amos and Andy. This is during the Great Depression era.
That's when you get those Universal Studio classics like Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein.
Those were the big horror films at the time.
Clearly in the 1930s,
we weren't a part of it.
In the 30s and 40s in those days, you know, there were only a few rules for black people. It was like a quiet servant, which is basically furniture, tribesmen, like in Africa, or voodoo priestesses, that sort of thing.
Those were the only roles that we would get.
Like buffoon, who was scared of his own shadow.
We are moving into this period of kind of the scientific or atomic age. There's not a lot of room for servants. So in laboratories, there's really no place for blacks in that space.
You know, that's another reason I think that black people pretty much disappeared during the whole, you know, the decade or two.
In all of those classic alien movies, like The Day the Earth Stood Still and all that stuff, there are
for about a good 20 years or so. No blacks was in these movies.
All the creature from the Black Lagoon looks so much like those advertisements from the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. The bulging lips looks just like those awful ads for niggerhead shrimp.
Yeah.
Of course we weren't in it.
Looks familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. So here I am, this 10-year-old in a drive-in theater with my mom, but even then I knew that there was something that horror was saying to me about blackness, about race. I knew that King Kong was a metaphor for blackness.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, there was something uncomfortable about it.
Monsters
and those are fucking classics.
Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
1968.
1968, this is where it changed. George A. Romero.
Night of the Living Dead, I think, gave me nightmares.
It was frightening.
Yeah, it was scary as hell.
The black and white of it plays such a huge part.
Just the gritty black and white of it.
Scary.
Horrifying. One of the best horror films ever made.
It has a black protagonist in Dwayne Jones.
You can be the boss down there.
Dwayne Jones.
You take orders from me?
You can never quite tell if the white woman who Dwayne Jones is essentially saving is more creeped out by the fact that there's zombies outside or the fact that there's a black man in the house.
Facts.
There was not a black character who was really a man. Who was, you know, again, who took charge of his fate.
Yeah, he was a man's man.
He's slapping white people outside the head.
Oh.
He's killing white zombie after white zombie.
That's right.
He's gotta be horrifying racist.
Yeah, those racist fucks, I know that scared the shit out of them.
Night of the Living Dead was so important because for the first time, we're not just the victims. We were the destroyers and protectors for other people in the houses.
Exactly.
Years later, I got to know George Romero. I asked him, I said, why Dwayne? And he said, the role wasn't written black. Dwayne just happened to be the best actor to show up on that day.
That ending is so heartbreaking. Like, damn.
I can remember seeing this and not being able to move.
Yeah, it took the breath out of him.
He's killed by the white mob, which had to look a lot like white mobs that were going throughout the South.
Looked like the old lynch mobs.
Black folks and terrorizing black folks.
Yeah.
You see lynchings, you think of Emmett Till, and it's just too much. And so you are left just sitting there going, my God.
Yeah, that ending is so damn powerful.
George Romero tells the story of putting the film cans in the trunk of his car, driving to New York City, and they hear it. They hear it on the radio.
Assassination.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed by an assassin's bullet tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
And I can't imagine what happens in that car, what that feeling is like, the crush.
They
the
just
world
wrapped
singing.
up Night of the Living Dead.
And I want to believe
Put the
that
film
they know.
inside the car, started driving to New York, and they got the news that Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Exactly because of what's happening in this country while he's filming it.
Yes.
I think and that gave birth to the Black Exploitation period.
Yeah. Classic. Ooh, Shaft.
We call 1970s
Foxy
Black
Brown.
exploitation. And it's really a portmanteau for black and exploitation. Blacks are on the big screen. Black audiences are really joyful for the inclusion, but the representations are sometimes just not.
From maids to pimps and hoes. At that time, we didn't use that word profile, but we would horrifically profile. I like to wear hats, and I bought me a new hat, and some white boy yells at me, "Hey, pimp!" You know, and I think he's thinking that he's complimenting me.
The big hats, and collars, and they were images that were perpetrated by white people who exploited these images for their own gain.
There are studios who get in on the blaxploitation craze. And AIP's business model was, we're not going to lead. We're going to look, see what's happening out there, what might be popular, and then we're going to get on kind of the backside of this and produce more of it.
I wasn't astute enough to look at AIP's budget, but they weren't making any money at all. I mean, the rumor was that they were in deep water. And then Blackula brought in a lot of money for them.
Blackula.
The name is Blackula.
Starring William Marshall,
Yeah.
a black actor, directed by William Crane, a black director. And so here's where you see how knowledgeable black directors and actors can have an extraordinary impact on a film.
He opens with him with his queen trying to argue with Count Dracula to end the transatlantic slave
Classic.
To totally seize the slave trade.
When is the last time black audiences had seen themselves expressed visually in the 1700s as erudite?
I was still in high school, and I had dreams of being the first black Dracula. When William Marshall came out with it, I was like, who could be mad about that? I mean, it wasn't just.
Then he was so damn cool.
Draculas that had been going on were these really soft, metrosexual white guys who didn't really have an energy to them for me. And then
I was proud that a black man was kicking some butt.
People.
But yeah.
Hi, what do you have?
Make it a Bloody Mary.
Said, make it a Bloody Mary. That was my guy.
I brought many producers who didn't want our voices to ring resonant.
Man himself.
Out and create a new kind of genre. And so there was a mix of white and black.
Right.
It really worked. And once the music was supposed to start, kids were supposed to be dancing, and I watched the AD, assistant director. He had a black couple and he had white couples. So
He didn't mix it up.
No, he didn't. He didn't. They didn't have gloves to throw down. But I said, "Hold it. We're not going to do this. This is what you're going to do. You're going to mix these people up." And it went all the way up to San Marcos.
He got some resistance, but his pushback helped even the higher ups doing this film understand that he was creating something really medium.
They didn't want to mix the couples dancing.
So memorable and
but they had to fight for that.
And then I asked them for a high-speed camera, which would be slow-motion camera.
Right, okay.
They didn't want to do it. I wasn't going to get it. This went on for at least a week for this camera to show up.
Giving them problems,
on
man.
The morning that we got ready to do that, this extra van pulls up.
And they gave it to
And these guys come out with this high-speed slow-motion camera. They decide to give it to you.
I bet they did. After they start seeing those videos, right?
People are still talking about that shot.
Yeah. That is the most scariest scene. That's the most scariest scene ever.
And it created kind of a cultural shift into
Screening Black and Screening I did with William Marshall, Pam Grier, Don Mitchell, and a host of other wonderful black actors.
I'm a Pam Grier fan. She ends up becoming the lead of the film, which to me is fun because, in my opinion, it's one of the only times they let her act. Like, she really got to be a real person and not a sex symbol.
This is when you start to see women really emerge. Women are now starting to take the center stage.
To conquer his curse, basically. They were using it to remove his curse.
Across horror's history, voodoo is explicitly assigned to black people. All black people know voodoo. And it's really helpful if they're in Louisiana.
How do you kill someone with voodoo?
An example of both fear of black women in general, but fear of black women's sexuality in particular.
Abby. Abby. This scared me so much when I was a kid. Because she was pretty, but then she went crazy.
Yeah.
What do you think of my powers now?
Black women, of course, have always been depicted as highly sexualized. This is definitely something that came to the fore with Abby. On one level, you could say she started resisting her defined role as sort of a church wife, becoming possessed by a sex demon who basically attacks men through sex. It's a silly film. But what's not silly about it is it does point to this fear of black women and black womanhood.
It's called Sugar Hill. Sugar's community is under siege by some corrupt white gangsters.
She conjured this voodoo god to get revenge on these gangsters who killed her boyfriend.
I want the power to destroy my enemies.
It was one of the early films where a black woman was the lead.
Remember me?
She had made her own determinations, was not suppressed by men and the system. She was smart, powerful, she was sexy, she was intelligent, and she was willful.
Show us what a big man you are.
It does resurrect these early notions of black men lusting for white women. And so for female audiences to watch these movies on the big screen certainly came with a bit of conflict.
We was happy that we was on the screen, but the way we were being portrayed was
gets lumped in
not good.
Bill Gunn is a guy who a lot of people don't know about because he was a playwright, a screenwriter. He wrote the screenplay for a movie called The Landlord that Hal Ashby did. Bill Gunn was in episodes of The Outer Limits, Man for Uncle. You know, they just wanted him to make a horror film.
Right.
You know, with black folks in it. And they took the whole cast and crew up to some place in New York and rewrote it and shot it.
Wow.
You know, to talk about the history of blood, the history of African blood, and how it's passed down to the ancestors.
This is a scholar.
I've never seen this, boy. I gotta look this up.
Blood as an addiction metaphor, which is something that spoke to this director and in his mind, I'm sure spoke to his community.
He was recently turned into a vampire, and he falls in love with this woman, and he kind of has to decide whether to turn her and that sort of thing. And it's very slow and meditative.
Throughout the movie, Hess, no matter how wealthy he is, no matter how educated, is still very fearful of the police.
There's no possible way for you to know this, but I'm the only colored on the block. You see, and if another black man washes ashore around here, you can believe the authorities will drag me out for questioning.
The police still remain a threat to even this very wealthy, well-educated black man.
It got like a standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival. It got to America, not so much.
Hollywood, frankly, it's a little too smart and it's a little too stylistic. The characters are really a bit too developed and realized. They wanted something cruder.
Actually, Bill Gunn, when I was at Howard, came. He didn't come with a print of the film.
You just came to talk about it?
Yeah, because the only print was available. The only print in existence was at the Museum of Modern Art. He was an interesting cat, and Ganjin Hess was his chance to elevate a vampire story into something more meaningful.
Ganja, the Tuskegee experiment was this medical experiment that spans a 40-year time. There were these tests done on Southern men in the South. Some had syphilis, some didn't, but they all thought they were being treated for what was called bad blood. They were pretty much being tested to see the effects of syphilis over a lifetime. Some of those men lost their lives without knowing what they were fully consenting to, and there was this big investigation, and it came to a halt in the early to mid-1970s.
You want to use me for some type of human guinea pig, is that it?
Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, Blackenstein, those are films that were lackluster in quality and maybe even story, but they are centered around medical experimentation on black males. A lot of that even today with movies like Get Out.
Why us? Why black people?
Also The Girl with All the Gifts, and even The First Purge.
Should you choose to actively participate, we'll implant a tracking device.
Yep.
After that, you'll be all set, as they say. Purge.
As sort of bad as some of these blaxploitation films were, it just simply got worse. Blackenstein is so bad, literally you can't see the film. I mean, you're like, did they purposefully shoot it in shadow or just completely in the dark? In addition to that, civil rights groups are protesting these films and saying that they're not good for black culture, they're not good for black representations.
Yeah. We may not have liked necessarily what we saw. It was stereotypical, but those doors slowly started to open.
And so you think, okay, the momentum is going to continue, and maybe in the 80s we're going to get these representations right. Exactly the opposite happened.
Got worse.
I always knew that if there was somebody black in the horror film, they would be the first to die.
I remember when the first thing I did was, when I got the script, was count the number of pages before I died.
Snag one. Snag one? Yeah, snag one and put him in the bucket. I seen this movie. The black dude dies first. You snag it.
So let's talk about black people always die first in horror movies. It's not entirely true.
Well, in Alien, Yaphet is actually the last male to die.
That's true, he is.
Yeah.
He makes a.
Yaphet Kotto, Alien, yeah.
Sometimes
He made it to
they
the end.
die first, but I want to kind of dispel a little bit of that myth. It often happens. But then at the same time, it can't always happen. Because black people play a particular role in horror films. For example, if you have a really horrible, big, kind of badass monster, how do you evidence that that creature is as bad as it can get? You need a black guy.
I'm Sergeant Buford Brown, but my teammates call me Bubba.
If the monster beats that guy, then that monster must be a true badass.
Yeah, I lived to the very end. I survived.
That's right.
My next movie, I did die, but not to the end.
Ooh, that's good shit.
Are incidental characters,
which would be fine, except that often they don't exist for any other reason in the movie. They don't have wants, needs of their own. Their only concern is the welfare of the white protagonists, and that's where it becomes problematic.
I looked at it as I was the chosen black person.
No, that's right.
I didn't look at it in a negative way.
I didn't look at it a negative way either. I'm getting a check.
Absolutely. Everybody said anything about it. I'm in Friday 13th. You're not. So I didn't look at it.
That's right.
It was really a good.
It's like, hey, we're in this movie. We're dying first. Or we're sacrificing ourselves.
Yeah.
Or we're just a sidekick, or we're just being sassy.
Didn't keep it you up again. You better put luck in that window.
Or we're not going to appear after the first act, or whatever. But we were in it. We were in it. It's such a powerful validation.
Yeah, we were still in there,
and
though.
I think it's really difficult for a lot of whites to even imagine what it would feel like if you were surrounded by entertainment that was nothing but black people, right?
When I was doing the craft, I definitely was really nervous about how to portray this character. Like Bonnie has burns, or what's her name? Sarah has scars, and the other one is poor and very angry and probably bipolar, right? So when I first auditioned, I had a big monologue about being anorexic. And then I think once they decided to cast me, that is when they made race her issue. But for me, I was like, I don't have an issue. I didn't think it was a big enough problem for her to have. Although, in retrospect, I actually think it's fantastic they had it in, because that is the kind of racism, whether it was subtle or big, that I went through, I'm sure you went through, and everyone went through. But isn't it interesting that I was able to compartmentalize it and be like, what, she doesn't have a problem? Because it's so ingrained in me that that's a part of me that I'm going to go into a store and someone's going to be horrible to me, or somebody white's going to say something terrible.
Why are you doing this to me, Laura? Because I don't like Negroids.
To this day, people come up to me and tell me how much it meant. I was getting off a train, this little girl was getting on, and she went, you're the craft movie! And then I realized, I wasn't even thinking that, like, I'm now in a movie, so these girls don't have to go through what I did, which was, watching Pretty in Pink, and going, there's no one who looks like me, or acts like me, or sounds like me. I am going to be that for these girls.
I took up my sisters, and I asked for the ability to not hate those who hate me, especially racist pieces of bleach blonde shit like Laura Lizzie.
Think what Rochelle said.
I live in a white world. I mean, most of the time all I'm around is white people. A lot of times when you're living in the world, so you don't think of it being, oh, I'm a token or anything like that. You just think, oh, I finally got a position in this, and it'll bring me other positions. So I think you think positively about what you're doing.
It didn't really matter to me because we were working. I was so happy that I had a check. But on the set, it was absolute. I was the only black there. I think minorities all over the world felt that Kincaid was their hero.
Yeah.
This could kick the motherfuckers' ass all over.
Kincaid, that's my guy.
Every script that I read, and the leading man, that was my part. That's the part I should have played, but I understood where it was. There was no resentment. It was like, in due time.
No problem, Mr. Owen. I was just getting to the ice cream.
It pains me to say it because he's a terrific performer.
Yeah, he was magnificent.
The character played by Scatman Crothers, who's a psychic, in the book survives. But in the film, to set up danger for the important characters, meaning the child and the wife, Scatman Crothers got an axe to his chest the minute the brother walked through the door.
Yeah. no reason.
Always bothered me because I was always thinking, oh, if he's shining, he should see that. He should have ducked that axe.
I mean, I thought it was.
Word, if he got the shining, he should have seen that coming.
The sacrificial Negro is just the character who literally just like puts themselves in the face of danger and dies in order for the white character to survive.
And the first Annabelle, poor Alfred Woodard has no investment in the film other than helping the white characters. No. I was like, wow, that's a little retro because you don't see that so much anymore.
It was literally Alfred Woodard saying, "Oh, I have lived my entire life just to save you," and it's just like, oh my God, it drove me nuts.
I think it really honestly goes back to that era of the birth of a nation where you have the faithful servant trope. That faithful servant trope is a really important image for a lot of races because it shows them that slavery and Jim Crow weren't so bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes those secondary characters are just gonna have to die because if they don't, the audience won't believe something scary is about to happen to the real characters who are not the black characters. Which is what I think gives birth to this other horrible trope, which is the magical Negro.
Money. You a danger girl.
It's one of those boxes that black people get put in, this sort of Uncle Remus thing where we're somehow afforded some mystical wisdom.
Alex, your friend's departure shows that death is a new design.
It's the Reagan era, and black people become the face of what is bringing this country down. The nation is led to believe that their good, hard tax dollars are being put into these young women who are having babies and collecting welfare chattel.
Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend.
On the big screen, then what is encouraged is that whites flee the urban. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Amityville Horror, Halloween, all have pushed us out into the suburban, away from the urban, and so we have to imagine new monsters. Take a movie like Poltergeist. Our homes are built on Indian burial grounds, and somehow it's radiating up and affecting us in awful ways, not because we're inherently evil, but because black and brown people are still the source of evil.
Is The Serpent and the Rainbow, directed by Wes Craven. And Wes Craven, I would say, was one of those filmmakers who really did try to be inclusive in his films. He also did Vampire Brooklyn, and he did The People Under the Stairs.
I remember seeing it on the VHS and being like, this movie has a black child actor as the lead? What's going on here?
I don't want to kill you, but I will because I don't like you much anyway.
You know, this idea of like sadomasochism and leather, like psychosexual shit, like this torturing stuff. This all seems very white, you know?
There's community here. All I see here are a couple of
That is good.
What are you gonna do? Choose yourself? And then we get this beautiful renaissance called the 90s.
I actually am not afraid to say Candyman.
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 I'm a really hard person to scare. And Candyman was like one of the first things in a while that got me.
That really got to you?
Yeah, I mean...
What? We had Tony Richmond was our DP who did the band who fell to earth. We had Philip
The
Glass,
music of that movie is phenomenal.
We had beautiful
Tony Todd is such a powerful actor and brings such gravitas to that role.
Be my victim.
Candyman is Tony Todd, and Tony Todd is Candyman for a lot of us.
Out of the blue, I get a call from my manager at the time saying there's a script on their table. It's called Candyman. And I kind of, in my cockiness, I hung up the phone because I said,
Candyman, fuck out of here.
This is a Sammy Davis Jr. story.
No, but you doubted me. Tony's got a great screen presence.
He does.
Yeah.
Candyman was, you
He
know...
takes over the screen.
Obviously unique, because that was the first black supernatural killer. And I love Clive Barker. And And Candyman being sort of like the patron saint of urban legends.
Candyman's not a boogeyman. He was an artist who was happily doing his thing. He happened to fall in love with a woman that wasn't his race, and he was lynched because of it. Not only that, they cut off his art hand.
And this backstory about this black guy and this white woman, and kind of, you know, how he is attacked because of this relationship.
It was a very terrifying film. A film that I love, but a film that, you know, is kind of problematic.
We should die together in front of their very eyes.
Here again, we have a movie that echoes what happened in King Kong in the 30s. There's this black boogeyman, and he's in pursuit of this blonde white woman.
He becomes obsessed, recirculating the same tropes. I don't think that character would go after poor black people.
Right. This is where you can tell that Candyman came from the mind of a white person.
He chooses to haunt, to disrupt the lives of blacks in Chicago, in the Cabrini Green projects, who really right across the tracks are essentially the representatives, the sort of the folks who would have been responsible, their ancestors for his lynching.
For me, it's a character. I don't live and breathe and die by it. I'm happy that I was able to do him, and hopefully I did him right.
It's very empowering to me to feel like black people can do anything. We're not in this box. We can be the Freddy of a movie.
I remember Bonnie Cruz Hall, who was married to Casey Lemons, who was in the film. At the original screening, he shook his head, he says, "Man, you realize," I said, "What? You gonna be Candyman forever?"
Yeah.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, because part 2 gets deep into his backstory.
The 90s were a renaissance, not just in film, I want to point out, but also in literature. This is the era that Spike Lee helped give birth to. Spike Lee was like the Terry McMillan in film, and what Terry McMillan was doing in publishing.
In the early 1990s, you kind of saw like a lot of black filmmakers kind of come into the fold and not just make comedies and dramatic films, but also horror films. And I think what they were doing with the horror films at that time, they were making movies that were kind of socially conscious and more directly in tune with what was going on in the outside world. It gets even more extreme than that because his soul is at stake with a demon who is like looking to immediately kind of eradicate him. I feel like Tales from the Hood did more to kind of cement black horror for the 90s.
Welcome
Another classic.
to hell!
Well, I gotta have something in there that we gotta mix it up, not just have horror for horror's sake.
It deals with spousal abuse and child abuse in the home. It deals with police brutality. So all of these things kind of intertwine and create this kind of supernatural tale about revenge and retribution.
Isn't it
Yeah, he's patterned after David Duke.
That's great. I'd even vote for him.
Is it really that far-fetched that someone would have that as a campaign slogan today?
That's how we kind of twisted when we started to do Tales. We gotta turn the tables and make the horror redemptive.
That was good.
This movie is kind of like helping us see justice happening. We're not seeing it happen outside of a movie screen or a movie theater. There's cops being acquitted and there's LA riots, and it just seems like things are so hopeless. But then you can kind of like exercise retribution in a horror film for justice, for racial justice, and I think that's super dope.
You know, he's sucking you dry, and beating you, and also hurting and destroying your child. That, and I was so young, I learned a lot on that set.
What he could do as an actor.
Yeah, he was a great actor. It's just that he was known for his comedic performance. That role, he killed
So I
it.
kind of knew David from the comedic thing, but I also knew that he had this Shakespearean background. And I purposefully wanted someone that everyone looked at as a nice guy. There was an interesting thing that happened when we screened that episode.
Teach you that boy some respect.
when David Allen Greer was first hitting Paula, these kids were laughing. And on, they got quieter and quieter and quieter. So it felt like they were about to cry.
But maybe it is because of Get Out that it got this kind of resurgence and it got a sequel.
Yeah.
Ain't over yet, bitch. Tales from the Hood 2.
Yeah, I was shocked they did a Tales from the Hood too.
Trying to get this thing made for forever.
I think it's gonna be quite amazing.
It wasn't as good, you know, the level dropped, but it had a story or two that was pretty good.
Some issues a little headier. It's a different kind of Tales story.
Yeah, it
touches
definitely
people
is.
in a different way. Though it is scary.
Yeah, it got its moments.
And also kind of heal any wounds that are kind of lingering within her father's, infidelity, and also maybe that kind of like touchy subject of is he being inappropriate with one of his daughters? Not like seeing an all-black cast or a film centered around black women that I can't do this. And I think what Casey Lemons' film did, she says, no, we can do this.
We
and
can
to not
do
be
this.
afraid of any pushback, to keep pushing
That's right.
your story and your voice.
Don't be
Which is
afraid
the
to
generation
push your
telling that
story.
their voice really does.
There's Billy and there's Jada.
Demon Knight. Tales from the Crypt. The sequel.
She did surprise me though.
That was good. That's a classic right there. Billy Zane, Jada Pinkett.
The final fearless women on screen have been on the rise ever since. Kira and The Invitation, Aaliyah and Queen of the Damned, Sunny and the Nua and The Girl with All the Gifts. They're black women, they're survivors. Seeing Sonali fit side by side with Predator and just killing aliens, we're just like, wait a minute, so her and Predator are gonna start like, that was so cool because I think she was like the last person alive and like he made her kind of a tribeswoman, like she was a part of their crew now.
Yeah, that was hot.
For a century, hip-hop inspired horror films started to come out.
Then it's just add Z. So, wolves with a Z. Vamps with a Z. Bloods.
They want to put the hip hop twist to these movies.
Z's exploding all over the place, but the Z's are there to indicate that it's kind of a hip hop kind of. You have rappers just showing up.
I hated it. I'm not gonna lie.
Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff, and it's a setup to the film Nightmare on Elm Street. The Ghetto Boys, who are from Houston, who have really significant horror themes. It's kind of a
those are hip hoppers, rappers that were
about it and eventually
in tune with horror movies.
This kind of
Bones, Snoop Dogg, horror flick. It's good, fire.
Title character.
It's basically a remake of JD's Revenge.
Community. But for me, one of the most interesting things about doing Bones was the love story. You haven't lived until you've seen Snoop blush.
No.
Snoop, first day Snoop had to kiss Pam Grier.
For real?
And he kissed her and they were into it. I said, you blushing, man? He said, hey, man, I grew up dreaming about this woman.
Word.
Kiss her?
And you get to kiss her? Oh, shit.
Good thing started.
Attack the Block. I love this film, man.
Damn.
This was the
I
kind
have
of
to see
movie I
this.
would have loved to have seen as a kid.
I have to see this. I've never seen
I
it.
show it to my kids.
I'm a little embarrassed that I haven't seen it yet.
Film that says, yeah, we can.
I think this is John Boyer's first flick.
Moses, played by John Boyega, basically saves his neighborhood. Every time I see this movie, I think it gives me chills. Moses is in the cop car with his friend Pest, and
Damn, they're about to give me a spoiler alert.
His name being chanted like John Boyega is a Star Wars, right? That's why he's this big star because he
He's a
has this
fantastic
smile,
actor.
this innocent, pure, childlike smile. He gets to feel like he's just not yours anymore.
Now you gotta see this film, Girl with All the Gifts.
Another one. I have to see this.
With this young black girl as the main character. It's after a disease that's hit humanity where it's turned everybody into like these feral animals.
I know the story somewhat, but I've never watched
The
it.
future, that character was not written as black. That happened during the casting process. It's a very similar process to what happened in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
She just killed the audition, so she got the part.
She
And
bodied
it
that
made such a
audition
difference
to
in
where they
the
had to
film
give it to her.
have this black child.
That's the kind of opportunity
that I would have
I have
killed
to
for
see
in the
that.
90s, reading script after script after script and wanting to read for the lead girl, but going, oh no, okay, I'm the friend, so I'm going to say, are you okay? Oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I mean, 6 million different ways
The black
to suck
one
it.
always asks the white
for
one,
line readings
are
for
you
the
alright?
same line because
Are you
whatever
okay?
is going on, it's not about
Is
black
there
people
anything
we're
I
going
can do
through.
for you?
It's, are you, white person in peril, okay? So when I saw that movie, I was like, okay, things are shifting from
Black is in fashion.
Yeah. Right now in this era, black is in.
A perfect movie of its
It's
time.
almost a
It came out
fashion,
like the transition
just as he
between
said.
I mean, I remember when Obama was elected, people were actually having debates about whether racism is dead now, that sort of thing. Is this a poster
Hell no.
and all that?
Racism would never be dead.
Horrific scene in Charlottesville, Virginia. The hate boiling over white supremacists and countered protesters fighting with fists and clubs.
Look at
Confederate flags on full display.
I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it.
It sort of like shows you where the culture is right now as far as black men are concerned.
Yes.
And a lot of the fears that we go through at being a part of the black race.
When I think about the fears that we deal with, I think that anything that we suppress as people, anything that we push down and hold deep, it's going to explode. It's going to come out in
like a powder
nasty
keg.
way if it's held on to long enough.
Sink into the floor.
Great movie.
That we as a people always talk about. Like it's like he told our secret that we do have a fear that these people are trying to steal our souls.
Deep down.
It's an option.
A deep down
It's
fear.
an option.
Oh, no. No.
They been setting
She
the table with the
bodied that role.
and
She
saying,
killed it.
"We ain't gonna do this. Get the hell out of here."
I think one of my favorite parts is when the girl is smiling and crying at the
Yeah.
same time.
My favorite part when
That shit was deep.
deep.
You stomping their ass.
I was like, oh, you didn't get that he was like picking cotton out of the chair? Or you didn't get, like, he killed him with a buck?
Yeah,
Did you not know black men were called bucks during slavery?
exactly. The symbolism in this movie is fucking phenomenal. You killed it, bro.
That sense of, can we just, if there was a brother in here, that would never happen. That would never happen.
Yeah.
If there was a sister, would never let this, she would be out of the house.
Yeah, the decision making
There's
is,
no good white people.
it is clearly different.
There's always one good white person. So this is obviously this opportunity to use that to my favor.
Exactly.
The audience is expecting that. You have to have one good white person in a film, right?
You know, I can't get you a kiss or anything.
He flipped the shit on his head.
I couldn't believe what I was watching.
I made Get Out for everybody in the audience. You know, I didn't want anybody to see the film and not get it, but I really made it for black audiences. That meaning, if black audience didn't get it, didn't like it, that's a fail.
The guy next to me and all the audience members who were white were cheering for Chris. That empathy that we have so often had to extend to characters who didn't look like us. White audience members were extending their empathy to him.
Times are changing.
You know, it's common knowledge that my intention was to have Chris go to jail, and that the cops would come out and take him away.
I thought for sure he was gonna get locked up right there. That's how it was gonna end.
Shot on the road. No one wants to watch that. That's headlines, that's hashtags. Prison would have been a little bit more of a mercy, But even so, I've seen enough black men in prison or
We've seen it enough.
By the time I showed the film to an audience, the culture had sort of changed, okay? So Black Lives Matter had become a presence, and there was now attention to racial violence in a way that there hadn't been when I first wrote it. We're allowed to buy a ticket and yell at the screen, but we're never going to get that representation.
Exactly.
Because of Get Out, I think black is the new green. I think any little remaining shades of, if it's black, do you think it'll work? If it's a black cast, you think it'll work? If it's a black director, you think it'll work? All those little bitty remaining barriers have been completely removed. There are some people right now, and I know this to be a fact, that are changing some of their white scripts to make them black now.
Exactly.
There's less and less out to the public.
These are stories by black creators for black viewers. If whites want to enjoy it, fine, but it's not about them, right? It's about us.
Exactly.
The entire film industry.
The way their white films were about them. And if we want to enjoy it, then fine.
Heroes and leads on
It's
screen.
the opposite side of the spectrum.
White people will see movies about non-white people.
Yeah, our story.
If they look, they'll see. You just have to make them.
Mm-hmm. Man, that was great.
Are we rolling? I didn't somebody tell us we're rolling. No one said anything. We're just sitting there talking. I don't know where we're rolling.
He said, I don't know we was rolling.
I don't know about the fashion of the time, but I'm like, all these murders going around with people with bites in their neck, and no one's suspecting the guy with the cape.
Nobody!
They did the mash. They did the monster mash.
Tora? Ara? It's like rhymes with Tora, right? Hara? Tora? I cannot horror. I love talking horror.
Horror.
I love talking horror.
They did the monster mash.
Return of the Living Dead was one of my favorite films. I
Oh,
didn't
of
know
course.
anything.
You was in it.
And the entire film, I was supposed to be walking around with a naked girl.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch it, go back to the movie, because when the scenes are on her, most people look at her.
Yeah.
But next time when you watch it, look at me and I'm gonna be like this. Every scene I was like that.
For any of you filmmakers, if you want to include a couple of old timers, hey, my number
Oh
still
man,
works.
I would love to shout y'all
My
out,
number
man.
is still working. You know what I mean?
Are we finished? Because I want to watch this whole movie.
That was great. Hold on. Okay, people. That was Horror Noire, a history of black horror. That was a great documentary. I love documentaries, and that was one of the best I have ever seen. I love how they went way back and showed how we were depicted in movies as far back as Birth of a Nation. How we were depicted in the roles later on after with Amos and Andy, and how he became one of the first black owners of a film company. They even covered the black exploitation films of the 70s. We were so happy to see ourselves on screen, but at the same time, the images we were portraying wasn't good. So it was like a double-edged sword. We were on screen, but we were pimps, hoes, drug dealers. And as the 80s rolled in, they started killing us off first. This documentary was so great. You had Tony Todd talking, Loretta Devine, Keith David. I mean, the list kind of goes on. It was a Shudder original. They turned it into a documentary. But I see that they have 4 or 6 episodes of black horror stories. I'm gonna check that out. But as you can see, I really love this documentary, and it makes the Dean's List very high in the documentary section. So, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell on the side so you won't miss out on the new shows coming out from your guy. I don't know what I'm gonna watch, but I guarantee you, it'll be something crappy from the 80s. Peace, y'all.